Week 13, lucky number 13. Okay, so this week we're going to be finishing up reading Oedipus Rex. We're not done with Oedipus Rex, but we will be finishing with the reading of it this week. We broke it into two big sections, so this is the second half. Today we're going to talk about the first half, answer questions, talk about some context and some background type things from part one, and that should set you up for part two, which I think in part one you kind of already know what's going to happen. It's just Oedipus hasn't accepted it yet, right? So it's going to be, how does he verify that what he's discovered about himself is true? So we're going to be working on these objectives, analytical reading skills, analyzing works of drama, and this week I will introduce to you the research paper. It's not due until the 12th of December. And I'm not assigning for you to work on it over Thanksgiving, but I just thought that this week might be a good time for us to go over it and for you to know what's coming up when we get back from Thanksgiving. If there's people who are super bored over Thanksgiving, then maybe they want to get a head start, but I'm not going to assign that. All right, updates. We do have a new hybrid schedule. Probably you figured that out yesterday. Looks like this. So now the class periods are about a full block long, as they were before before spring break, I guess we would say, last year. So what's supposed to happen is the first half of the period, each day is about an hour, and each block is supposed to be, synchronous lesson, and then the remaining 45 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever of the period is supposed to be asynchronous. So you're kind of like back and forth all day long. I'm going to continue it the same way. I mean, obviously I changed the schedule a little bit to fit the block's beginning times, which shifted quite a bit, but just so that, it doesn't overlap with the other classes. But again, I do not intend to have mandatory classes on Thursdays or Fridays. That might change second semester. Second semester is more challenging than first semester in terms of, reading pace, and it's a historical semester. So that term is all about the history of English literature. So we go all the way back to the origins of the English language, and we go all the way up and come into modern times. So the pacing of that is quicker. So we might find that it's more helpful to you, but we can discuss that second semester. In any case, I'm sure you realized yesterday that the start times have changed. Also, that means that the afternoon kind of teacher availability times are not present anymore. So if you have something that you want, you question or whatever, you have ways to communicate with me, and I hope that you will. People already do. Some people are coming onto campus 2 days a week for hybrid learning, and that's described over here. If you want to switch to hybrid learning for the fourth 6 weeks, they're going to do another survey. So every 6 weeks, at the end of the 6 weeks, they'll do a survey. And if you want to change your learning location, then you can do that in the survey, and that will allow you to come onto campus. But you can't just decide to start coming to hybrid learning. They need to make sure that the schedules are balanced. I don't know why they were so worried, because they were expecting 150 students yesterday, and I think we had 40. So even the people who chose hybrid learning are kind of staying at home right now. But anyway, that's the schedule. Are there any questions on that schedule? I feel like we went through it yesterday, so. All right, so Thanksgiving break is next week. This week is kind of a lighter week. It's really just about finishing up the reading of Oedipus. I tried to clear most everything else off your plate so that you can focus on that, especially if you want to participate in the watch party on Thursday. We're gonna have another one for the second half of the play. So if you want to participate in that, I think you get more out of it if you have already read the material. I stop a couple of times, but mainly I just let the play happen, and you can read along with it, but it does skip from the book. It's a different translation that they're using in the play. There's tons of translations of Oedipus Rex. So I just tried to make it so that that was really your only goal this week, is just to finish up reading Oedipus Rex, and then you've got Thanksgiving break with no assignments really. And then when we get back, we will do some wrap up things with Oedipus. And at the same time, we will be working on the research paper, which is due on the 12th. I'm going to go over that research paper today, just so that you have a heads up. And, you know, people who are busy over Thanksgiving or just want some downtime, no problem. Other people who would rather get it out of the way because they know that there's other things coming up, they have it so that they can work on it. Just a reminder that the evaluations are open at STC. I think that in all my classes so far, maybe like 8 or 10 people have completed their evaluations. It's really important to do that. We never do know who put what on the evaluation, so you can be 100% honest. And it's how we grow as instructors. We're growing a lot right now as instructors, but especially with moving to virtual, it would be good to know if there was something pesky about the way that I was doing something. I think I try to make good decisions, but you know, I could not be looking at it from the right perspective. So it's kind of good to do the evaluations so instructors know if they're on the right track, especially now that we're doing all this virtual stuff. Second semester at STC is also 100% virtual. So they decided to go with that for second semester. I don't know, East is, I think it's just going to continue with hybrid for the rest of the year, to be honest with you. But those are open. You can click here or also over here under course evaluation in the navigation panel. You can choose that too. Reminder about absences. I'm noticing that more people are not showing up to Zoom. I'm not mad about it. I think that, you know, your grade is going to come out depending on how much you put into the course. But I do record the classes every time we meet. So if for whatever reason you do not make it to class, it is an expectation that you go and watch that video from that class period. I try to keep them under an hour. You can speed me up and make me go 1.5, or I'll talk like a little mouse or whatever. But I do think that it's going to be difficult to keep up with things and so on, and do a good job with the upcoming assignments, the research paper and the exam as we go into the final few weeks of the semester. So do make sure that if you don't make it to class, of course I'm talking to people who are already here, but maybe there's some people watching this video later, then do make sure that you go in and watch the video so that you're up to speed. I get emails sometimes and it's super obvious that they didn't go back and watch the video or maybe even read what was on Blackboard. And I'm nice about it and everything, but I notice. So I just feel like, you know, people who make 75s, 80s, 85s are always like, oh, why didn't I make a better grade? Well, maybe that had something to do with it. So just a reminder. All right, I want to go over the assignments, and then we're going to go back and work on the first part of Oedipus a little bit today, and I want to talk about the research paper. So the assignment I already mentioned is the second half of Oedipus Rex. We do have the big reveal in the first part. Early on in the play, it's obvious that to us that Oedipus is the cause of his own people's strife, but he can't accept it. And so the majority of the play is about how he brings together all the evidence to finally see if it's true that he's responsible for the strife in Thebes because he killed the king. But we already know that, so the rest of the play is kind of just like, how is it going to come together that he's going to be convinced of that, and how are we going to know for sure? So same thing, I put the PDF here. It's not the greatest quality PDF because of this translation. I just made a PDF from the textbook. Probably not supposed to do that, but I'm not selling it. Structure chart, hopefully that's helping you. If you're working with the structure chart, I think that you would end up with a really good study tool for the exam. And that's up to you. If you want to just remember the stuff that happened in Oedipus Rex, then that's good. But if you want to have like an item to study, I think filling this chart out as you go would be helpful to you so that you know which characters are showing up in which sections of the drama, and just, you know, bullet notes or whatever works for you over here. You can even download this and make extra columns if you wanted to put extra information in there. But I think that would be a good way to take notes as we go through the play. And then I also have the study guide here. I just tried to think about what are some key focus questions for each section of the small chunks of the play. So, I mean, there's a lot more that I could ask, but just basically, if you look at these questions before you read the next part, then if you can answer it when you're done reading that section, then you probably did a sufficient job of reading it. So it's sort of a way to predict, like a sort of preview what's going to be happening in the next section, and also check your ability to read. You know, so say you read the second Stasimon and you ask yourself, what is the chorus opinion of Oedipus, and you can't answer that, then it's a clue that you need to go back and reread that section, because that like is an important, you know, piece of information from that section. So I did that for pretty much all the sections in the play, just a simple 1 question, sometimes 2 question guide. I'm sort of like a minimalist. If I don't need 20 questions, I'm not going to make 20 questions. Again, this is not an assignment. This in the chart also are just things to help you understand the play on a deep level. So after you're done reading to the end of the play, you need to make sure that you watch one or the other of the videos. Dramas are unique from poetry and short fiction because they're designed to be performed in front of an audience. So normally in class, we would put on our togas and we would act out the parts of the play, but I don't think that's feasible in this situation. So we have these productions to watch. The one that we've been watching on the watch parties is the 1957 stage production. I just think the masks are cool. So I like that one. I like how they did that so that, you know, they stand up above, but then their mouths can still have expression. I just think that it's just really, really cool the way they did that. Then there's the 2018 version, which is a little easier to understand. You could almost watch that version before you read the text or follow along in the text, but they skip a little bit more in that version, and it's a little bit easier. So, you know, you can take that or leave it. And same thing with the watch party this week. I put the Zoom link here. You can, if you want to, it's optional, it's not a grade, but if you want to make sure that you've read the second half of the play, it's roughly 20 pages, come in at 8 or 10:05 or 12:30 on Thursday, and I'll be doing the same thing that I did last week. We'll be watching the second half, picking up where we left off and watching the second half of the play. And I'll stop a couple times. There really haven't been very many questions, but, you know, maybe there'll be some questions in the second half. So we'll do that too this Thursday. The link is here. I'll try to remember to send out a reminder link on Google Classroom also. And then the research paper is due on the 12th. That is going to be a very firm deadline because my grades are due on the 14th. So I'm basically going to have, if they're due on the 12th, you know, some people will be turning them in at midnight. I'm basically going to have Sunday to grade them. So I don't think they're going to have a lot of feedback, but there's also not going to be any revision because it's the end of the semester. So I mean, there'll be some feedback, but it's not going to be feedback to help you improve on that particular essay because time's going to be up for it. But I tried to extend that as much as possible, knowing that you probably have projects and other things going on, so that you could have enough time to finish the paper and make your choices about your time frames. I'll talk about that when I go over the paper toward the end of today's lesson. So I wanted to spend a little time today talking about the first part of Oedipus Rex. If you were present during the watch party last Thursday, I did stop a few times for clarification and, you know, just to kind of supplement what was happening in the play. Hopefully that was helpful. there weren't very many questions, but if there had been, we would have answered them, and that's how that goes. But there are some contextual things that I want to touch on with this first part of Oedipus Rex to prepare you for the second part and make sure that you have a good foundation for the first part. So I'm going to use this online tool called, let's see, where is it? Aha Slides. So what you can do is go to, at the top it tells you to go to, you can do this on your phone or you can do it on a tab. It's more of an interactive kind of presentation. There are a couple little background videos that I want us to watch today. And also I want to get some feedback and some ideas from you. So if you go to ahaslides.com / what do I have there? OED1. Then I have this slideshow, but it's also got some interactive tools on it. So it would be good if you could go there, and then that way you can, you don't have to sign in or anything, but there's some spots where you can ask questions. There are some spots where you can kind of do like a poll and submit some ideas and that kind of thing. So if you do that, that would be good. Why isn't it going to the next? Try that again. The first time I've used this one. I wonder why that's not advancing. Let me go to the next slide. Hopefully I don't have to go back. Oh, there they are. There's the little tool. Oh, I don't know why it wasn't showing in the first one. I don't know. I try so hard to be up to speed with these things, but I just end up coming off like somebody's grandma, I think. All right, so the first things that are up on this slide presentation are kind of some background things about some historical things and some elements that feed into the play itself. So there's a quick video I want to show you about Greek city-states and the way that government was set up in Greece. And some of the places that are mentioned in Oedipus Rex show up in this video as they're talking about. You'll see the map where they're, you can see the distances between places. So when they say, oh, you know, he's going to Corinth, you kind of can get a feel for that. So I'm going to play that. It's just a few minutes so that you can get some background. Oh, wait. I think I have to turn off my AirPods.
The ancient era is filled with stories from major empires and kingdoms, like the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the Persians, and the Hittites. But the history of ancient Greece took a different route. When we talk about Greece in ancient times, we are not simply talking about a kingdom, an empire, or a country, because they were not organized this way. Greece was formed by a large amount of city-states. Each city-state was like a tiny country. The Greek cities had total sovereignty over their territories because their governments were autonomous and independent. Therefore, a unified Greek state did not exist back then, as it does now. Since each city was autonomous and independent, their customs and forms of government could be quite different between them. They could be organized as democracies.
Sorry, hold on a second.
Of the citizens. It could also be an aristocracy like in Thebes or Corinth, where the noblemen had the power. And there were also oligarchies, where a tiny group of citizens ruled everyone else, as it was the case of Sparta. The Greeks from this period did not proclaim themselves as Greeks, but as Hellenic. Based on Greek mythology, Helenus was the son of Deucalion and Pyrrha, the survivors of the flood carried by Zeus and Poseidon. This way, the Greeks were direct descendants of Helenus. Therefore, religion had a major role in the establishment of a common identity between Greek city-states. The same was valid for the Greek language, which, in spite of its variations, was shared by all Greeks. Among the different Greek city-states, some were more notorious than others. Among them, we have Athens, the birthplace of democracy and Western culture. Its name derives from the city's protective deity and the goddess of wisdom. The powerful Sparta, a city with a strong military culture, descended from the Doric invaders, who, according to legend, were the heirs of the great hero Hercules. The city of Thebes, founded where once was the old kingdom of Boeotia, was the home of the mythological kings Oedipus and Cadmus, the city's founder. The city of Corinth, in turn, had a strategic location, separating the peninsula of the Peloponnese from the rest of Greece, and for that, the city was always involved in major clashes. We cannot forget the city of Olympia, home of the Olympic Games. This pan-Hellenic event was crucial to strengthen the cultural bonds between the different cities. The Greek model of city-states achieved major success. The cities were culturally and economically prosperous. However, their success brought a brand new problem: overpopulation. To fix the issue, the Greeks started to launch expeditions to colonize new lands. This movement became known as the Second Greek Diaspora, since the first happened after the Doric invasion. Thus, the Greeks scattered themselves throughout a major portion of the Mediterranean lands. Colonies were established in France, Spain, Africa, in the Italian peninsula, and in the East. The Greek city-states founded where today we see Turkey's coastline, like for instance Samos and Miletus, developed themselves quite rapidly, taking advantage of new forms of knowledge brought from the contacts established with new cultures due to trade activities. These cities became immensely wealthy, and so they were a target for the powerful Persian Empire. The clash between the Greek city-states and the world's largest empire appeared to be unavoidable.
Okay, so I just wanted you to get some visuals on the ancient cities, or like, artists' renditions of that. The next slide, this is an image of the Sphinx. So if you remember from section 1 that we read for today, the Sphinx is the creature that Oedipus ran into when he first came to Thebes. And obviously it's a mythological creature. It's a woman's body, torso with the wings of an eagle and the body of a lioness. And the Sphinx is a horrific creature in Greek mythology, but as the video that we just watched explained, there was a lot of territorial shift. And so there's also Thebes in Egypt. And the Sphinx in Egypt had a whole different mythology and is usually a male. And you can see an image of the Sphinx, you've probably seen in the pyramids at Giza, where they have all the pyramids, and then there's that giant lion-looking man face creature made out of stone with the big paws. I should have put a picture of that up here, but that's not Greek. That is another image of the Sphinx, but the Sphinx in Egypt is a different, has a different meaning. Here's a Greek amphora, which is a, vessel that holds water or wine, and you can see the image here of Oedipus as he is approaching the Sphinx here to answer her riddles. And it's through that exchange that he becomes the king of Thebes by relieving them of her plague. All right, another thing that I wanted to play for you is this little video about the oracle at Delphi, because that oracle comes up a few different times in the play. The first time is, if we talk about it, the story chronologically, is when Jocasta and I want to say Tiresias, but that's not right. Was pregnant, and she consulted the oracle to find out, what's going to happen with this child. The oracle said, well, he's going to kill his father and marry his mother. And so that was the reason why they got rid of Oedipus in the first place, because Laius, the king, and Jocasta, the queen, didn't want that to happen. So they tried to overthrow fate
by sending the baby off into the woods to be eaten by animals. So the oracle at Delphi is that sort of prophet that told them that that was going to happen. The oracle comes up again because Oedipus, as a young man, before he went on his journey and ended up at Thebes, went to the oracle at Delphi to find out, what his future was going to hold, and the oracle told him the same thing. Well, you're going to kill your father and marry your mother. And he didn't know at the time that he was adopted or taken in as a baby. And so he thought that meant his current parents. And so he left immediately and went thinking that he was avoiding that fate. And that's when he ended up in Thebes, really running exactly to his fate. But the oracle is the one that told him that prophecy. The oracle then comes up a third time at the very beginning of the play, because when all of the people of Thebes are in pain and they're suffering because they haven't had anything to eat and they're having this plague, Oedipus has sent Creon to the oracle at Delphi to find out what to do, what's causing the suffering of the people. So the oracle is kind of like a crucial, I don't want to say fact giver because it's a prophecy more than anything, but it's where they go to get information that will help them make decisions. And, so this video is about that oracle and what the ancient Greeks would have believed about that oracle. This is like their religious beliefs back in the ancient times. So I'm going to play that for you real quick.
Located at the foot of Mount Parnassus, there was a sacred place for all Hellenic people. This place was known as the Oracle of Delphi. Its origin dates to the clash between Apollo and the serpent Python, which was sent by the goddess Hera to pursue Leto, who was a lover of Zeus and mother of Apollo and Artemis. After defeating the terrible viper, Apollo decreed that on that spot, a temple would be built in his honor. And indeed, the edification was established. Apollo was also considered the god of prophecy, and due to his mythological origin, the sacred oracle of Delphi surpassed all others in terms of prestige and devotion. The oracle really existed, and was the main religious center for the ancient Greeks. Generals, kings, and noblemen consulted the oracle before making any important decision, whenever it was feasible to do so. No war, alliance, or colonizing expeditions happened without listening to what the oracle had to say beforehand. There was a subterranean chamber inside the Apollo's temple, in which only the Pythonesses, who were the temple's priestesses, could enter. According to the tradition, there they inhaled the gases emanating from the buried body of the Python serpent. These gases and Apollo's gift gave the Pythonesses the power of prophecy. Before asking the oracle anything, the visitor went through a process of purification. They had a sacred fountain to clean themselves, which contained the following inscription: "For the good pilgrim, a drop is enough. For the bad, not even an ocean could remove his stains." Then it was necessary to offer a sacrifice to the gods. A lamb or a bird would have been killed, and then a priest searched their bowels, trying to find divine signs. The question posed to the oracle was written on a clay board and delivered to the Pythoness. Inebriated by the gases, the priestess went into a trance and began to mumble cryptic words. These words were written by the priests. The answers delivered were usually enigmatic, mysterious, and often difficult to interpret. Nevertheless, the peoples of that time stated that the prophecies had a high degree of accuracy, and, when they were not confirmed in reality, they believed a misinterpretation had been the cause. The oracle's span of glory lasted many centuries, until its decline arrived. Nero, the Roman emperor, ordered his legions to loot the sacred temple. During the looting, more than 500 statues of bronze and marble were stolen, and then taken to Rome. And with the growth of Christianity, the oracle was permanently closed by the Emperor Theodosius in 385, considering it was a site where superstitions and pagan rituals germinated. But the temple was already in decline even before that. Julian, known as the last pagan emperor, sent an emissary to pose the oracle a question. The priests of the temple sent him the following reply. Tell the emperor that the glorious temple fell into ruins. Apollo does not have a roof over his head anymore. The leaves of the laurels are silent. The sources and prophetic streams are dead. At the beginning of the 20th century, scholars did not find any signs pointing out to the presence of the famous prophetic gases, concluding that everything was simply a superstition. However, in the final periods of the 20th century, geological studies indicated that the temple is located on top of a geological fault, from which gases are emanated, perhaps with anesthetic and psychotropic effects. The glorious past of the Oracle of Delphi is recorded in works such as Oedipus Rex, in which the oracle prophesies that Oedipus is destined to kill his father and marry his mother. Due to its pivotal importance in the Greek world, the oracle was considered the navel of the world, and in its walls, the famous inscription and the biggest of all advice could be found: know yourself.
Okay, so I'm hoping that that helps you with a little bit of background and just thinking about some of the references that are present in the first half of the play. So let's move on and talk about characterization a little bit. I want you to go ahead on this slide and type in some adjectives that we could use to describe Oedipus. He changes even in the first half of the play. But what are some words that we could use to describe him? I want to see a word cloud appear here so that we can discuss. So if you all could sign into the AHA slides, it would help. I see 3 people are there. Also, you can ask questions on the screen as you go. Prideful, that's a good one. Yeah, because it like speaks to his inability to accept the truth, right? Clueless. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like sort of like at what point do you have to just sort of accept what you don't want to accept? Everybody's got a different point, and I think that's playing out in American history right now, right? I'm not trying to say that President Trump is like Oedipus or vice versa, but it's just sort of like a little bit of a mirrored situation. If you have to accept something that you don't want to accept, where's the point where you just, give over to it and accept it? Yeah. Determinative. I don't know if you mean determined, but yeah, he definitely wants to get to the bottom of things and feel like what's going on is, he could figure it out. He wants to be the king, right? He is the king, but he wants to be the solver of the people's problems and the reliever of their pain. So he's determined to find out the truth. And, we kind of have to hand it to Oedipus on that level, to be honest with you, because even with some evidence that he could be the cause of it, he still pushes forward. He doesn't try to sweep it under the rug and say, oh, never mind, we don't need to look into that, right? He doesn't stop the process because it's not turning out in his favor. He is sort of like, well, I guess we have to figure out the truth here, and that is sort of laudable, even though he thinks it's possible that he's the cause of it. Egotistical, that's a good one. Yeah, so he's the king, so there's probably a certain ego that goes with that, but Yeah, he's focused on himself. He blames Creon for, you know, going against him and saying that he, you know, whatever, they have to get the person who killed Laius to justice. And it is a little egotistical to blame somebody else instead of looking at the facts to show that it's partly your responsibility. That's a good one. Any others? I'm trying to do this as a way, because I know that y'all don't like to unmute and have a discussion, so I'm trying to like meet you halfway and have something going on that's not just me talking all the time. So I did some searching and came up with this. I'm hoping that it bridges the gap a little bit, but anything else you want to add to that slide? Because I think there's a lot of words we could use. He changes throughout the section, right? Like at first I would add maybe concerned, right? As at the beginning of the play, he comes out and he's listening to all the people and their pain and their, yeah, empathetic is a good word for that. So he's trying to figure out what's the cause of it, and he doesn't just, you know, he doesn't say, oh, peasants, you know, and go back into his palace. He walks among the people. Yeah, compassionate, that's a good one too. He walks among the people and tries to figure out what's going on, and the chorus tries to inform him, and yeah, he's not the type of king to just, you know, let them eat cake type. Flip through the pages a little bit and see what else. Scrupulous. Okay, that's a good word. Scrupulous, you know, he has scruples, meaning that he has like moral compass. But again, it's hard for him to, you know, even with morals, it's sometimes hard to admit that straightforward. Well, most of the time, yeah, in some parts he's straightforward, but then he's not straightforward. Like when he doesn't want to accept what he's hearing, he blames Creon, he blames the seer, right? And because he doesn't want to accept his possible part in it. But yes, there are parts where he's straightforward. Let's get to the bottom of this. Let's figure out what's going on. We have to get to the truth. It's just he's not going to like the truth. And we can already see it coming, right? We can see the avalanche happening. Oh, good. I'm ignorant. Now, ignorant is a really good word, and I think that nowadays people use it sort of incorrectly. Ignorant doesn't mean stupid. It just means unaware, right? Ignorant means that you didn't know that, and he didn't know that he had killed his father and married his mother, and now his children are also his siblings, and he also didn't know that ended up causing the strife of the people of Thebes. Yeah, that's a good one. But yeah, ignorant, I don't know, maybe not as much. Maybe I don't hear that as much anymore, but a few years back it used to be, oh, you're so ignorant. And it's like, it's not the same thing as stupid, right? Okay, I think that's a good list. What this tool does is it crossing stuff out. That's interesting. If we had a bunch of people who were contributing words, as the words started to appear, the more people who put in the same word, the bigger that word gets. So then that word gets weight, and we can talk about why that's the most prominent word. And then the ones that are only mentioned once or twice are smaller. But, you know, we have a small group this morning. So, but anyway, I think those are all good contributions. So let's switch over and talk about Jocasta. What are some adjectives that we could use to describe her? See if we can pop some up there, and I'll talk about them a little bit. I mean, you can always unmute and talk about your contribution, but I don't know if we'll get volunteers. Jocasta is the wife of Oedipus, and, well, I mean, I would say at this point possibly his mother, but she's his mother. And yeah, that's gross, right? But, you know, that's why it's a tragedy. What words could we use to describe her? Intelligent, yes. She's got a good vocabulary. I think also she is quick to reason. You know, Oedipus says, oh, the oracle says, this, and she says, well, the oracles are sometimes wrong because there was an oracle saying that one of my children was going to kill his father and marry me, and that didn't happen. So intelligent, devoted. Yeah, she does seem to care for Oedipus as her husband. She, is as concerned as he is about the people, and then she's also concerned about him. Like she's like, why don't you just let it go? Maybe it's better to listen to Tiresias, and oracles don't always know everything, especially now since we saw that video. Oracles were yes, they were trusted, but it's kind of sketchy the way that they operated. Loving, yeah, I think she cares about him. Stubborn, yeah, well, she wants her way because she doesn't want. It's almost like she'd rather sacrifice the pain of the people to alleviate the pain of Oedipus. But she's, yeah, hard-headed goes with that. She's not going to win. Understanding, she does seem concerned, and she tries to explain. She also gives him a lot of information, because when she says, well, oracles don't always have the truth, Oedipus says, well, what do you mean? And she tells the whole story about this child that she had and doesn't really hold back any of that information. So she just sort of explains why she thinks that oracles can't be 100% trusted. And so, yeah, she does give out that information fairly. And then there's a couple things that she says, like about where Laius was killed at the crossroads of three roads, and that sort of jogs Oedipus' mind. So that's where he starts to get the idea. Yeah, she's devoted to Oedipus, and her role as the queen. That's good. Those are all pretty good. Any others that you would want to add? Understandable. We understand her position. She is skeptical. That's a good word. She's skeptical of the oracle. She's skeptical of this whole, situation, because in her mind, she thinks that baby died because they took it away from her after it was born and took it out into the woods, and they bound its feet together and hung it up on a tree. And in some versions, the feet are not just tied together, but they're bound together with a stake. And so that's why Oedipus has these marks on his feet, because he was just supposed to be hanging there, and animals were supposed to come in and just eat him, which is pretty savage. But it's a story, not real life. Formidable, that's a good word too. She's the queen. Yeah, good. Yeah, she's gonna have a downfall too, because she's gonna have to have a realization. As Oedipus starts to uncover more and more information that it's possible that the prophecy did come true already years ago, and he did kill his father and marry his mother, he thinks he got away from it, right? Because his family back in his original city-state still exists. So he thinks he escaped the prophecy when he actually has been living it for 20 years or more. Doesn't say how many years. So she's going to have a realization too. As he starts to put the pieces together, it's going to be undeniable that that prophecy came true and has been true for years, and she's going to have to grapple with that. So yeah. All right, those are all good. Good job with that one. All right, I think this is the last slide. What is Oedipus' dilemma at the half point in this play? We've touched on it a little bit today, but what would you say is, sort of like he's between a rock and a hard place? What's the internal conflict that Oedipus is faced with as we continue and begin reading section 2? What are the things that you think are tearing him in two directions? Have some ideas up there? He can discover the truth, which can help his kingdom, but also lead to his downfall. Right. You don't win in either situation. Yeah. So he can either protect himself from the truth, or he can help his people. And as a king, if you want to be a good king, you're supposed to help your people. So the question is, will he sacrifice himself in the knowledge? He's in denial. Yeah. I think, but I think anybody would be, right? Like if somebody came up to you and said, oh, you're going to kill your father and marry your mother, like obviously that's a dramatic thing. But like, I don't think it's a realistic thing to be in denial about that. Like, I feel like it'd be like, dude, that is extreme. Now, of course, if you've studied psychology at all, you know that the Oedipus complex leads to a concept in psychology about a boy's sexual interest in his mother when he's not sexual, but like romantic interest in his mother when he's younger. If you ask a little boy, 3-4 years old, who he wants to marry, he'll say his mom. If you ask a girl, she'll say her dad. That's the Electra complex. Yeah, we outgrow it. Well, most people outgrow it. Yeah, he's in denial, and that's a dilemma too. He's sort of like needing more proof for something, and until he accepts it, it's going to be hard for him to move on and solve the problem for the people. He can't take a turn around his life, even if he wanted to. He's confused with himself and has no idea what to do. Yeah, so he just pushes forward. The only thing that he can think to do is to try to solve the problem and bring the killer of Laius to light. And he's hoping that it's not him, but as signs point more and more to it, the pieces are going to fall into place, and there'll be a point where it's undeniable, where there's enough evidence that there's no way that it's not true. And then you can't ever go back, right? You can't ever unring that bell. He doesn't understand his fate. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too, because he thinks that he's outrun fate. And that's the human hubris, right? That's the human pride, thinking that we're smart enough to outsmart destiny. And the whole point is that destiny's way bigger than one human being. And, if that's the concept that you believe in. So the idea is that there's something bigger, but human beings are sort of, self-centered and don't always want to accept that. Yeah, he doesn't understand his fate. That's true about most of us, I think. Plus, it's hard to accept your fate if it's not what you want. I don't think anybody would want to kill their father and marry their mother, literally. And so he doesn't want that to happen. So he's sort of blocking then he can't because of his obligation to his people. So yeah, I think you guys did a good job of nailing that down. I was just reading between the lines. All right, so I just wanted to have that discussion with you because I feel like, there we go. I feel like it's a good thing to talk about those elements and a little bit of background and also some visuals for the play. That's why I wanted to show some of the videos too, so that you could start imagining, you know, these ancient ruins and these ancient times and that sort of thing as you're reading. Because the play stage productions can't really reproduce that 100%. But anyway, I think you guys did a good job with that. Let's, so read the second part and show up to the watch party if you can. I want to spend maybe 10 minutes talking about the research paper, 5 or 10 minutes. Everything is outlined here, but like I said, you don't really have to worry about it until after Thanksgiving break if you want to take a break. I'm not going to make you write the paper and have it due when we get back or anything like that. But it is a research paper. It does need to be a minimum of 6 pages. That's a STC English departmental requirement. So I wanted to just talk about that paper, and then that way, if you do feel like you want to get started on it and you have time, then you at least have it in front of you and available. You don't have to wait. If you can feel free to email me over the break if you want to. So if you have questions or if you get started and you're not sure about your direction, or if you need help finding sources because you want to work on it, then you can definitely email me. But the research paper needs to be documented, and there are 6 optional topics. You need to use at least 3 sources, 3 secondary sources. So those can be databases, articles on JSTOR. It could be, legitimate websites, things like that. But you need at least 3. I put in yellow there because it's probably the most important thing to mention, because there's not going to be an opportunity of time with this paper unless you turn it in early for me to say, hey, you misunderstood what was happening in this paper and it's not a passing grade. Because that happened with the analysis paper. Some people wrote the analysis paper and never talked about a lens. And those were like 50s, because they talked about the piece of short fiction, but they never looked at it through one of the lenses that we studied, and that was the point of the essay. So I gave those people an opportunity to rework their essay. I met with them, the people who wanted to, and they were able to rework it. But we don't have the freedom of that time because of the grades being due 2 days after the paper's due. So I just want to reinforce that this is a research report. You are not coming up with a theory. You are not trying to say something about Oedipus Rex and then support it. You are just reporting on what other people have said about Oedipus Rex in light of whatever topic you pick down here. These are the different research topics that you can go with. You can propose to me your own topic if you want, as long as it's something along this line and can support at least 6 pages of research. But those 6 are the ones that I want you to focus on. So you don't have to come up with a thesis about your own interpretation of Oedipus. We're not doing that. That's an analysis essay, and this is a research paper. So think of it more like a report. This is what these scholars have had to say about this aspect of Oedipus. You're just reporting that in your paper. So when you think about it like that, it becomes a little less daunting and a little less frightening, because all you have to do is look up sources and figure out what this person, and this person had to say about the psychology of Oedipus, write it up, quote it here and there, explain it in a logical order, and then cite those sources, and that's it. If you're short on pages, you just find another source. What's another person have to say about psychology and Oedipus? And then you've got your extra page or whatever. So the topics are here. How does Oedipus demonstrate a specific literary theory? How does Oedipus Rex deal with universal issues of society? How does Oedipus convey aspects of psychology? What historical aspects are important influences for understanding Oedipus? How does Oedipus Rex deal with philosophical issues? And to what extent does Oedipus Rex rely on a single literary trope? A trope is like a device. So Maybe your first step is just doing a little preliminary checking around, get on JSTOR. You can do that through the STC library. Oh, maybe I'll put a link on here. You can do that through the STC library. You can also just do a regular Google search, but just use your tools of determining what websites are valid and so on. But those are the 6 questions. I will tell you, I didn't put it in this document, and I'm not going to put it in this document, but I will tell you that if you come up with a comparable topic that interests you more, you can definitely communicate with me and say, I would like to research this aspect of Oedipus. Then I can look at your research question and see if I feel like it will be comparable, and I can approve that. So if you have a different way you want to go, as long as I feel like it's going to fit the length. All this stuff is pretty obvious. Here are just some suggested research steps. So I will have some conferences set up the week that we get back when we meet on the Tuesday. I think that's December 1st after Thanksgiving. Then I will explain to you how you can sign up for a conference, and we can look at your paper and its progress. That's optional. And I'm glad to give you whatever feedback and ideas about your work. But I just don't do that up until the due date, the night before. I don't stress myself about that at the end. But I will, work with you for those 2 weeks that we're back in December. And, there'll be some times when you can sign up, and we can get on a Zoom call and talk about your paper. You can just submit your paper to me. But those will end on Tuesday the 8th, because then I'm going to be getting ready to do exams and all that stuff. Grading's pretty straightforward. Remember that the grading for STC on paper, final drafts of papers, is 40% of your grade. So this paper plus the analytical paper is almost half of your grade for STC. And it's going to count as a major assessment in the 3rd 6 weeks for East. The rubric is here. I'll go through that in more depth when we get back from the break. And there are some resources here too that can help you. Oh, I did put the STC data. I already did that. I forgot I did that. So you can just click here and use your STC credentials to log into JSTOR and other databases that might be helpful to you. If you haven't used those before, maybe I'll do a little tutorial in December to show you how to use those tools. But I'm thinking that if you did 1301 and 1302, that you're fairly familiar with those. And I don't need to go over them right now. But are there any questions about the research paper before I let you go for today? There's a chat. No, everybody's good? All right, well, like we said, we have some time in December. I'm just kind of giving you a heads up so that you know what's coming up, and you can balance all of your time with your other things that are going on. I'm hoping that I see some of you on Thursday. I think we had about 20 people throughout the day last Thursday, so I feel like that was a pretty good number. But if you can, come on Thursday. If not, then the links are here for you to watch the remaining part of the productions. And I hope that you all have a good Thanksgiving. All right. I guess that's it for today. I went about an hour. I guess that's what they're expecting us to do. There is no class on Thursday that's official. It's just a watch party if you want to show up. So the next time I'll see you in class will be Tuesday, December 1st. All right. All right, you guys did a good job today. Thanks for doing the interactive with me. Have a good day and a good break.